Welcome to ThinkTech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast on things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Bill Spencer.
And I'm Jean Juliano.
In our show tonight, we'll cover the ThinkTech HVCA program on May 24th, the need for speed, broadband in Hawaii.
We'll see the panel talk about broadband speed and how you get it, and we'll hear the questions and comments from around the room.
The program was presented during a luncheon on May 24, 2012 at the Plaza Club. Nearly 150 people showed up.
It was intended to examine current broadband speeds and access in Hawaii, such as they are, how we have lost our advantage over the last decade, the current market and appetite for greater speed and access, how a move to greater speed and access will affect and benefit our community, and what we need to do to achieve them.
The central question was, what will it cost to catch up, and by whom will those costs be paid? Broadband is increasingly high-tech, but affordable broadband is increasingly critical to our daily lives, businesses, and the economic development of our state. At the end of the day, broadband is at the heart of our economy and essential to keep us competitive. The changes, policy issues, and challenges must be identified and publicly addressed. Now is a great time to get a handle on broadband.
Sonny Bhagowalia, Hawaii's Chief Information Officer, presented opening remarks.
I intend to be a broker between providers and users of information, so that information is what we need to develop business and deliver services faster, better, and cheaper. So I leave you with this thought as we do the transformation flagships, and Hawaii Broadband Initiative is one of our 4 key flagships of the administration. Why can't Hawaii be the next Singapore? I ask you this question. If Singapore has planned that, and they can, one city country basically, can have this incredible planning with 5 million people and everything just works lickety-split, that's technical term, why can't we do that in Hawaii? We got much more resources and much more capability. We got to focus on that. And why can't we be the best digital state in the damn union? Why can't we do that? We can. I think if we get together, that's what we need to do. Thank you very much. 5 minutes?
Yuka Nagashima, CEO of the High Tech Development Corporation, then moderated a panel of providers, including David Lassner of the University of Hawaii, Brett Lewis of Blue Streak Broadband Networks, Clifford Miyake of TW Telecom of Hawaii, Nam Vu of ShakaNet, Kiman Wong of Oceanic Time Warner Cable, and Eric Yeaman of Hawaiian Telecom.
Hawaii Broadband Initiative, it's 1 gigabit by 2018, ubiquitously available at affordable rates. And for the techies out there, the 1 gigabit, it's symmetric, both up and down, because that's what we need to have. There was a Google initiative maybe a year ago or so, where they were having each regions and cities and counties compete for their fiber to the home. How many of you remember that competition? Hawaii did submit an application. We didn't win. However, what we learned from putting together the application is that this community is capable of coming together. And so we put together a Facebook page, Tech Hui and others who led that initiative. It's called Gigabit Hawaii. If you haven't liked that Facebook page, please do so. It will help us to give you status updates of the initiative, as well as show the community that we are one, we are together, we can do it, we want to do it.
I'll say 2 things about our competitiveness. One is I actually think Hawaii does pretty well for most of the US. I've seen those numbers fluctuate depending on which metric you follow. At one point we were 49th or 50th. Another study came out and said we were fastest growing. I mean, we're actually 1 in something. So in general, I think the services that we get from a couple of really strong companies that serve the consumer market is on a par with what most of the country can get. And in fact, most of our state can get those services. And by that I mean DSL and cable modem services. We're in pretty good shape, actually. What worries me is that our entire country is losing its competitiveness. So where we're sort of creeping up from 7, 8, 9 megabits per second. I guess our high end right now for consumers is 50, the wideband service from Kiman will say a little bit about. And I tested mine, I get 50 megabits up and down to their hub. So good job. Oh, no, just down, excuse me. So let me compare that to the leading countries and what I would say the leading communities in our country. So they are targeting gigabit. I was thrilled when our governor, who was, by the way, the first governor to announce that as a goal for a state, the first governor in the country to set that goal.
Building a new system, we often ask why, what is the difficulty getting a new system into Hawaii? There's a lot of issues. One of them is cost. Currently, I think the number, if you were to try and build a new fiber system, you're looking at about a $200 to $250 million investment to get from Hawaii to the West Coast. There is another system, I've talked to some folks, they want to come in from Asia to Guam, to Hawaii, and then to the coast with a branching unit connecting Hawaii. And they're looking at spending about $750 million to build that system. But it seems that we have a lot of throughput. We have the capacity to get in and out. One of the things that we don't realize and we don't think about when we think about broadband is the latency issue. And latency basically is the delay or the length of time it takes to get from one point or one network point to another network point. And in Hawaii, we've never really, I guess, to get anything in or out of Hawaii, we're always going to the mainland or we're going to Asia. The peering points are currently there. We're trying to change that. Right now, we're in the process. We just got some power pulled in to a cabinet we have at DR Fortress. And there's a company there that decided to take up part of the premise called CenturyLink. A lot of you know them as Quest. They're a tier 1 internet provider. So we had power put into a cabinet. We're putting in a new switch in there, and we signed a contract with them to do a tier 1 peering arrangement right in DR Fortress. So we've moved that pier from the West Coast, where it normally was in Los Angeles, into Hawaii. And that should be active in about 2 weeks. The other thing we're trying to do to facilitate things is we're putting Ethernet network-to-network interfaces into all the carriers. And what that will do is now the carriers' Ethernet traffic that comes in and out, we'll be able to connect them at native Ethernet speeds right in their central office and bring it out and distribute it via Metro Ethernet.
First thing is, there needs to be a demand for and a supply of good broadband for it to flourish. I mean, this is pretty obvious. The demand has to come from the customer. It has to be a customer demand or market demand. People want it, it'll happen. If you assume there's a demand, then you need a cheap supply. Okay, so broadband, we're a broadband provider, Intel, TW, we're all big providers here. So with all of us, and including the wireline, I'm controlling wireline because I can't speak too much about wireless. I'm sure Nam will. 95% of the state is covered. You can have some kind of broadband. Now, we're not talking about gigabit, but you can get, in 95% of the places, you can get some broadband, okay? There's only, right now, 60 to 70% of the households and businesses that subscribe to broadband.
We absolutely believe and support the governor's vision of 1 gigabit of broadband. Broadband is critical to our ability to be successful as a community, as a country, and to compete globally. No question about it. It is the most important connection that each of us have in our homes and our businesses that connects us with the world. In the last 4 years, Hawaiian Telecom, on average, has spent over $80 million a year in our network and our systems to continue to improve our capabilities for our customers. That investment comes with a price. Okay? Capital is not free. Okay? It takes capital to increase the capability. And if you want to have access to that capital, you have to generate a reasonable return.
If there's one word that I needed to use to describe the broadband in Hawaii, it would be density. At Blue Streak, our goal is to act as a resource provider to other carriers. There may be fiber in the street or going into a building that you're in, but across the street there's not fiber in the building that your partner is in or a sister company of yours is in. The cost, as Eric has spoke to, is there to create that connection. what we do is we wirelessly do those connections from 20 meg up to 10 gig, symmetrical speeds. And then we have the carriers use our services to get to that area. We can be used as a redundant connection, as a temporary connection while fiber is being built. But understanding the density in a market is one of the most important things I think you have to do to understand the broadband connections within the market.
One of the things when we first started, we were really naive. And so we said, well, you know, how do we get connection out to here? Well, let's just string it up on the light pole. So we went around and asked, you know, can we go on the light poles? No, can't do that. Why? Hawaiian Tel and Oceanic are on the light poles. Yeah, but we don't have procedures to let anyone else on the light pole. Why? We just been working on it. Well, it's been 10 years and they're still working on it. So that's something at the state level that, you know, if someone would actually work on it, we could actually get space on the light pole, which would then create a situation where the playing field is a little bit more level now. You know, if we can't distribute our wires the same way as the two main carriers do, then there's no way for us to really compete on that level. So we said, okay, well, if we can't go on the light poles, let's just go on the ground. No, can't do that either. Well, isn't there any shared conduit? No. Well, who owns the conduit? Cable, telephone. Okay. Well, why don't we just rent space in the conduit so that I'm not picking on you guys, really. So why not just rent some space? You know, they are obligated to let us in, and everything will be fine, right? So we said, okay. Well, I'll share you a little story. We wanted to run fiber from one building to another building right next to each other, and we said, okay, everything looks good. We'll set it in motion. We're gonna get it going. 6 months later, we find out, oh, the conduit's full. But there's not much in the conduit. Well, there's all these trunk lines. Well, they've been cut some time ago. It looks like it's been cut 15 years ago. But we have to clean it up. Well, can we just clean it up? Yeah, but it's gonna cost you umpteen thousands of dollars to clean up this conduit so that we can run this fiber for you. So those are the challenges that we've gotten into.
And finally, we asked some of the people who attended for their comments and reactions to the program.
I thought everybody was frank. We heard where everybody was, and I really enjoyed it.
The issue that was discussed most was that of the difficulty in getting permits, getting government approvals. So I think that's the area in which there could be the most improvement.
We all want to solve the problem and get faster, because it's, you know, we all live here. We want it to get better. How do we do it is the hard part, and how we don't always agree on how to do things and what's the best way. But I think with less regulation and less, I'll call it interference to a certain extent, give us the problem, and we'll solve the problem.
Great to have this group of people here. What a great opportunity to see them all in one place. A little difficult to talk about in an hour, so I think it would be great to have it again on your show, because we had a lot of questions here today that we just couldn't cover, but it was a great discussion. I'm so glad we did it.
You hear about these providers complaining about lack of demand. Well, we're making demand. The problem is that there's a disconnect between creativity and business as usual. So that's what I'm hoping to hear more about is innovation and what we can do with these types of technologies.
I mean, if we can help just reduce the cost by reducing the permitting process, then that's fantastic. I think that's potentially a low-hanging fruit, maybe. It gets really exciting. You can start thinking about the possibilities of what we could do application-wise when there is high-speed broadband.
I think there needs to be a lot more discussion about what exactly are the goals, what are the options, and what are the costs going to be. And it's a good thing today that the billions of dollars got brought up, and people have at least a better framework to how much this is going to actually cost.
Duopoly, does create a lack of competition amongst, new carriers. It was interesting to hear the perspective from the public side as well as the private sector.
It's always great to have all the players in the same room talking together next to each other.
We also need to see what the long-term effect will be. If we're not building up when preparing for that demand, what's going to happen.
Yeah, it was interesting just hearing the different sides of the story. There's some issues, but it's the one thing I think we can all agree on is we're going to need it, and we're going to need it. Start doing it right now.
I was trying to make Kapolei the East City for Hawaii. I remember that. You remember that? Yeah. And it's just great that we're finally making some headway.
As we all age, part of the natural process. Looking forward, we should look forward to automated homes, telehealth systems, systems that assist us in our being able to maintain an independent lifestyle. And what we have now is that we're still charged for phone calls, and we have limited bandwidth. No way could a doctor see an HD video signal coming out of your home using a common DSL or cable system.
I'm wondering how the continued use of our public rights-of-way is going to benefit the public, as in public access. So these companies are turning a huge profit using our public rights-of-way. What's in it for us?
Yes, this was very informative, and it's really great to see what you can do when you put everyone in the same room and start talking. You have them talking within themselves and see the real issues that's coming about and the different structures that I learned at least 10 new things standing here. So more of this to come. We definitely could hit that 5-year mark that we're looking for.
My goal was just to try to get some of the issues that people don't tend to talk about. And so hopefully something will happen. I think that the light pole thing could be something that the state could implement fairly easily if they just kind of get together, and draft some procedures to allow people like us to get on. Then that'll foster competition.
I was able to put some competitors on the spot and on public notice. To call for collaboration, so hopefully we can get some integrative leadership, which is much needed, probably essential for this broadband initiative.
And now for our ThinkTech calendar of events going forward.
ThinkTech's 4 to 5 p.m. weekday drive time radio series on KGU 760 AM continues this week, covering business, Asia, tech, energy, the arts, and government. Tune in to 760 AM every weekday at 4 p.m. and raise your awareness on ThinkTech Radio.
On June 28th, HVCA and ThinkTech will present a luncheon panel program called Speedy Relief from Tough Environmental Laws in Hawaii, Amendment or Exemption, with a number of speakers and panelists to cover the controversial bills that were introduced this year to exempt special interests and government from the requirements of Hawaii's environmental laws.
July 26, HVCA and ThinkTech will present a luncheon panel program called Filmmaking in Hawaii, The Legacy of the Descendants. Get it? With a number of speakers and panelists to cover the status and growth of the film industry in Hawaii, the challenges involved, and what it looks like for the future. Sign up for these programs on hvca.org.
And now, here's Bill Spencer, president of the Hawaii Venture Capital Association, with this week's Spensation.
But with millions of apps, how do you decide? I'm just looking here. I have apps on my phone that free mostly, that I downloaded once. I've never really even looked at them. I don't even have enough time to fiddle with apps anymore.
Are there any that you do use on a regular basis?
Gosh, that's a good question. I would say that one interesting app is Disaster Alert. It actually tells you what disasters are happening all around the world. Of course, always concerned about there being an earthquake or a tsunami in Hawaii, and you can sort of get that information immediately, and that's really cool.
It could be life and death,
It could be. I tend to use the iPad for reading the Wall Street Journal and the Star Advertiser. I don't really look at the paper anymore. In fact, I just canceled my paper subscription. Just extra trash. I keep track of my finances. I, of course, use it for mail. I mean, I can use the phone for everything I used to use a desktop or a laptop for. So, in that sense, communication is critical. And, of course, I listen to music.
Yeah. So, that the problem, though, and it's pervasive. It's. Let me try to tell you how I'm looking at this. Is that as you move into a new area of disruptive technology, of change of lifestyle, of change of tool sets, there's always a vacuum, especially now because of the speed of it, on how to make a buck. And this is actually going to ultimately hamper creativity, don't you think? If there's no way to make a buck, why do it?
Right. I think, of course, that's the big trick, is to make these things so useful that ultimately somebody will pay for whatever functionality they afford and not just rely on advertising. I think from an entrepreneurship standpoint, the interesting thing is if you've got the skills and if you can code an app, you can start a business for peanuts. It's not like the old days with the internet where you needed a couple $1,000,000 to build the site and the infrastructure and all that. You can produce an app and publish it in the iTunes or Android store and be running. But it's got to have value. It's got to stand out from this morass of apps. And, will the social networking really drive this? A lot of these things are all about, staying in touch and with your friends and pictures. And I mean, I frankly don't want people to know where I'm having lunch or if I checked into the Foodland or to the department store. That's sharing too much, oversharing.
Years ago, Michael Crichton wrote a book called The Terminal Man, and it was sort of the feedback thing, electronic feedback. And the faster he exchanged with it, the faster it went. And finally, it expired him. He just couldn't keep up with it. And I see social networks like that, too. You go faster and faster. You spend more of your time trying to keep up with the people who want a piece of your time, and after a while, there is no time, and your pal.
That's exactly what will happen. I've been through it before. As you recall, my first business was computer conferencing. We had a software program called Connexus. Get it?
Great.
What I found was it's just information overload. At some point, your brain just can't handle all this superfluous information that really isn't critical to attending to your life, and you just have to withdraw.
That's why I'm going to make my suggestion to you, Bill. The one app that seems to me most appropriate for the times in which we live is an app that rates all the other apps and gives you a no fuss, no muss, rating, a system of rating, accurate rating, tells you which ones are good and which ones are a waste of your time. And that app I would buy.
I like that app. Let's go down to the greenhouse or box jelly and see if we can find a coder to put one together for us.
There you go, right here in River City. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. And now here's our co-working entrepreneurs, Ray-Chung Fujihira and Tony Stanford, to keep us current on their latest adventures at the Box Jelly.
We've had 2 successful talks, which huge turnouts, bigger than I ever imagined. I think we maxed out the focus room, didn't we?
Oh, definitely.
2 times. So we had one talk with a really in-depth understanding of network security and the ways of that it's being exploited, so you can better protect yourself. So that turnout, that was about 40 people. Mm-hmm. High Capacity was running it, and they promoted it, and we helped promote it with them, but they really took charge and ran with it. Mm-hmm. And this just builds the confidence of what High Capacity is doing.
Yeah. I think it shows that High Capacity is its own community and it's doing well. So we're looking forward to having them having their own space soon.
with our own space, yes. You know, we're coming very soon to the Denmark of taking on the new lease of our new space. And so having HiCap there with us, it adds a little comfort to me.
Yeah, we've changed our business model a little bit. We're going for more anchor tenants, but we're also expanding the capacity of our co-working space as well. And we're pretty confident that this is going to give us a lot of the freedom that we like to do, so we can work on a lot of other projects that are coming out of this endeavor.
This is true. So with choosing the right anchor tenants that better help the co-working community is also key, and this is one of the things that I believe high capacity brings to the table at the most. Fullest.
We're definitely a curator of people and a curator of organizations, and what we're doing is we're trying to put the organizations that are going to work well together and also able to stand on their own together in one space.
This is true.
We have a Luxor event coming up next week, so we're flying in some people from an organization called Luxor to teach lean user experience. If you don't know more about that, you can Google Luxor or luxr.co, and we'll be going to Boulder, Colorado, right after Luxor, as part of Startup America Partnership and Startup Hawaii, and really exploring that as well.
You know, for more info, please take a look at www.theboxjelly.com, as we have a few things on our calendar that will lead you to better places to look up more information and also how to get tickets.
We'll be right back to wrap up this week's edition of ThinkTech, but first, we want to thank our underwriters.
Thanks to the Scheidler Family Foundation, which supports a number of educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including ThinkTech.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Miko on Maui and Helco on the Big Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company, and CEO of CBI Palmers, a tech company in Hawaii. Okay, Gene, that wraps up this week's edition of ThinkTech. Remember, you can watch ThinkTech on OC16 several times every week. Can't get enough of it, just like Gene does. For additional times, check out oc16.tv.
You bet, Bill. For lots more ThinkTech videos and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on ThinkTech and OC16, visit thinktechhawaii.com. Be a sponsor or a volunteer and help us reach Hawaii.
I'm Bill Spencer. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech. You can watch this show throughout the week and tune in next Sunday evening for our next important weekly episode.
I'm Jean Juliano. Aloha, everyone.